Hello, welcome back. Let's try to read about this airline company, Aer Lingus. That's an Irish airline company in Dublin. I just read about this low-cost aircraft airline company Ryanair. Ryanair have a headquarter and base in Dublin, and Ryanair have tried buy Aer Lingus like 2 times. So Ryanair really likes to buy Aer Lingus. It's 1:30 p.m. and it's a little bit hot in my apartment, but it's always not too hot, but a little bit hot. It's 26, but it's very hot many places in Europe. There's maybe we have some heat waves in the southern part of Europe, more than 40 degrees. Just made a video about it. That's heat wave records. They make some light blog. I'm uploading a video about it. But let's read about Aer Lingus. I did download this PDF yesterday. So I think it's old national airline company of Ireland. I don't know much about Ireland history, but I like to read about it. Need to read about Ireland and Dublin, because we need to go to Dublin one day, I think, because of Ryanair. If I like to fly a lot cheap, Dublin will be a good place because it have like 120 connections. But Milan, Bergamo have a lot of connections too. So maybe it's more south. I don't know. I'm not traveling like 30 years. Let me check. The sound needs to be 50 sound level. Yes, let's read about it, and I will try to make a video in English and Danish later. I should do it today, but maybe I don't do today because I'm always tired and sleepy.
Aer Lingus. Aer Lingus logo 2019.svg. EAT Calpulcini in Shamrock. Founded 15 April 1936, commenced operations 28 May 1936, hubs Dublin. Frequent flyer programme Air Club. Avios 1. Subsidiaries Aer Lingus Regional. Aer Lingus UK. Fleet size 53 destinations 93 Parent company International Airlines Group Headquarters Dublin Airport, Ireland Key people Lynn Embleton, CEO, revenue decrease. €467 million, 2022, operating income increase. €305 million, 2018, net income increase. €205.5 million, 2016, employees 4,500 approx. 2020, website www.aerlingus.com. Aer Lingus, /RLS/Aer an anglicization of the Irish Aer Lingus, ELS, meaning Air Fleet, is the flag carrier of Ireland. Founded by the Irish government, it was privatized between 2006 and 2015, and it is now a wholly owned subsidiary of International Airlines Group, IAG. The airline's head office is on the grounds of Dublin Airport in Cloughran, County Dublin. Formed in 1936, Aer Lingus is a former member of the One World Airline Alliance, which it left on 31 March 2007. After the takeover by IAG, it was expected that Aer Lingus would re-enter One World. However, at a press briefing on the 15th of November, 2017, the airline's then CEO Stephen Kavanagh stated that the airline has no plans to join One World. 3. The airline has code shares with One World, Star Alliance and SkyTeam members, as well as interline agreements with Etihad Airways, JetBlue Airways and United Airlines. Aer Lingus has a hybrid business model. 4. Operating a mixed fare service. 5. On its European routes and full service, 2-class flights on transatlantic routes. Ryanair owned over 29% of Aer Lingus stock and the Irish state owned over 25% before being bought out by IAG in 2015. The state had previously held an 85% shareholding until the government's decision to float the company on the Dublin and London stock exchanges on 2 October 2006. The principal group companies include Aer Lingus Limited, Aer Lingus Bishay Limited, Aer Lingus, Ireland, Limited and Dernan Insurance Company Limited, all of which are wholly owned. 6. On the 26th of May, 2015, after months of negotiations on a possible IAG takeover, the Irish government agreed to sell its 25% stake in the company. Ryanair retained a 30% stake in Aer Lingus, which it agreed to sell to IAG on 10 July 2015 for €2.55 per share. 7. 8. In August 2015, Aer Lingus shareholders officially accepted IAG's takeover offer. 9. IAG subsequently assumed control of Aer Lingus on the 2nd of September 2015. 10. History. Early years. Aer Lingus was founded on the 15th of April, 1936, with a capital of £100,000. Its first chairman was Sean H. Waddy. 11. Pending legislation for government investment through a parent company, Aer Lingus was associated with Blackpool and West Coast Air Services, which advanced the money for the first aircraft and operated with Aer Lingus under the common title Irish Sea Airways. 12. 13. Aer Lingus Toronto was registered as an airline on the 22nd of May 1936. 14. The name Aer Lingus was proposed by Richard F. O'Connor, who was County Cork Surveyor, as well as an aviation enthusiast. A DH.84 Dragon, repainted in the livery of Aer Lingus original aircraft Iola. On the 27th of May 1936, 5 days after being registered as an airline, its first service began between Baldonnel Airfield in Dublin and Bristol, Whitchurch Airport, the United Kingdom, using a 6-seater de Havilland DH.84 Dragon biplane, registration EIABI, named Iola, Eagle. Later that year, the airline acquired its second aircraft, a 4-engined biplane de Havilland DH.86 Express named Era, with a capacity of 14 passengers. 13. This aircraft provided the first airlink between Dublin and London by extending the Bristol service to Croydon. At the same time, the DH.84 Dragon was used to inaugurate an Aer Lingus service on the Dublin-Liverpool route. The airline was established as the national carrier under the Air Navigation and Transport Act, 1936. 14. In 1937, the Irish government created Arianta, now called Dublin Airport Authority, a company to assume a financial responsibility for the new airline and the entire country's civil aviation infrastructure. In April 1937, Aer Lingus became wholly owned by the Irish government via Arianta. The airline's first general manager was Dr. J.F. Jeremiah, known as Jerry Dempsey, a chartered accountant who joined the company on secondment from Kennedy Crowley & Co., predecessor to KPMG, as company secretary in 1936, aged 30, and was appointed to the role of general manager in 1937. He retired 30 years later in 1967 at the age of 60. In 1938, a de Havilland DH.89 Dragon Rapide replaced Iola, and the company purchased a second DH.86B. Two Lockheed 14s arrived in 1939, Aer Lingus' first all-metal aircraft. And Aer Lingus Douglas DC-3 at Manchester Airport in 1948 wearing first post-war livery. In January 1940, a new airport opened in the Dublin suburb of Collistown and Aer Lingus moved its operations there. It purchased a new DC-3 and inaugurated new services to Liverpool and an internal service to Shannon. The airline's services were curtailed during World War II, with the sole route being to Liverpool or Barton Aerodrome, Manchester, depending on the fluctuating security situation. Post-war expansion. On the 9th of November 1945, regular services were resumed with an inaugural flight to London. From this point, Aer Lingus aircraft, initially mostly Douglas DC-3s, were painted in a silver and green livery. The airline introduced its first flight attendants. In 1946, a new Anglo-Irish agreement gave Aer Lingus exclusive UK traffic rights from Ireland in exchange for a 40% holding by British Overseas Airways Corporation, BORC, and British European Airways, B. Because of Aer Lingus growth, the airline bought 7 new Vickers Viking aircraft in 1947, however, these proved to be uneconomical and were soon sold. A Bristol 170 freighter at Manchester Airport in 1953. In 1947, Aer Lingus came into existence to operate transatlantic flights to New York City from Ireland. The airline ordered 5 new Lockheed L-749 Constellations, but a change of government and a financial crisis prevented the service from starting. John Costello, the incoming Fine Gael Taoiseach, Prime Minister, was not a keen supporter of air travel and thought that flying the Atlantic was too grandiose a scheme for a small airline from a small country like Ireland. 15. A Vickers Viscount 808 in green top livery at Manchester Airport in 1963. During the late 1940s and early 1950s, Aer Lingus introduced routes to Brussels, Amsterdam via Manchester and to Rome. Because of the pounding route structure, the airline became one of the early purchasers of Vickers Viscount 700s in 1951. Which were placed in service in April 1954. In 1952, the airline expanded its all-freight services and acquired a small fleet of Bristol 170 freighters, which remained in service until 1957. Professor Patrick Lynch was appointed the chairman of Aer Lingus and Air Orienta in 1954, 16, 17. And served in the position until 1975. 18. In 1956, Aer Lingus introduced a new, green top livery with a white lightning flash down the windows and the Irish flag displayed on the fin. First transatlantic service. A Boeing 720 in Aer Lingus Irish International livery in 1965. On the 28th of April, 1958, Aer Lingus operated its first transatlantic service from Shannon to New York. 1920. In 1960, Aer Lingus was renamed Aer Lingus. 20. Aer Lingus bought 7 Fokker F-27 Friendships, which were delivered between November 1958 and May 1959. These were used in short-haul services to the UK, gradually replacing the Dakotas until Aer Lingus replaced them in 1966 with second-hand Viscount 800s. 21. The airline entered the jet age on the 14th of December 1960 when it received 3 Boeing 720 for use on the New York route and the newest Aer Lingus destination Boston. In 1963, Aer Lingus added aviation traders Carvairs to the fleet. These aircraft could transport 5 cars which were loaded into the fuselage through the nose of the aircraft. The car fare proved to be uneconomical for the airline partly due to the rise of auto ferry services, and the aircraft were used for freight services until disposed of. The Boeing 720s proved to be a success for the airline on the transatlantic routes. To supplement these, Aer Lingus took delivery of its first larger Boeing 707 in 1964, and the type continued to serve the airline until 1986. Jet aircraft. Conversion of the European fleet to jet equipment began in 1965 when the BAC 111 started services in continental Europe. 21. The airline adopted a new livery in the same year, with a large green shamrock on the fin. 22. In 1966, the remainder of the company's shares held by Arianta were transferred to the minister. A Fokker F-27 friendship at Manchester Airport in 1965. The F-27 was used on short-haul services between 1958 and 1966. For finance. An aviation trader's car fare that was used as a vehicle freighter is seen loading a car at Bristol Airport in 1964. In 1966, the company added routes to Montreal and Chicago. 21. In 1968, flights from Belfast, in Northern Ireland, to New York City started. However, it was soon suspended due to the beginning of the Troubles. 23. Aer Lingus introduced Boeing 737s to its fleet in 1969 to cope with the high demand for flights between Dublin and London. 23. Later, Aer Lingus extended the 737 flights to all of its European networks. 23. In 1967, after 30 years of service, General Manager Dr. J.F. Dempsey signed the contract for the airline's first 2 Boeing 747 aircraft before he retired later that year. 1970s to 1990s. A BAC 111 in the old livery at Zurich Airport, Switzerland in 1975. On the 6th of March, 1971, Aer Lingus took delivery of the first of 2 Boeing 747s for use on the transatlantic routes. 24. 25. The company later purchased a third for its fleet but quickly offered it for less because it was not initially profitable for the company to fly 747s across the Atlantic. In 1974, Aer Lingus unveiled a new livery which eliminated the word international and / or Irish from the fuselage titles. The livery included 2 colors of blue and 1 green, plus the white shamrock on the fin. In 1977, Aer Lingus recruited its first female pilot. Grain Cronin. The airline was the second in Europe, after SAS, to introduce female epaulets. 26. In September 1979, Aer Lingus became the first European airline other than Alitalia to be used by Pope John Paul II, when he flew aboard a specially modified Boeing 747, EIASI or St. Patrick, from Rome to Dublin and later from Shannon to Boston. In the early 1980s, the 707s were phased out. An Aer Lingus commuter Saab 340 at Dublin Airport in 1993. In 1984, the airline formed a fully owned subsidiary, Aer Lingus Commuter, so that Aer Lingus could fly to larger cities in Ireland and Britain whose flying time from Dublin did not require jet aircraft. These services employed 5 of the Belfast-built Short 360 after conducting a trial with the Short 330. Around this time Aer Lingus purchased a majority shareholding in the cargo airline Air Trezona of some DC-8 freighter jets. Between 1987 and 1989, new Boeing 737s arrived to replace the older ones, and 6 Fokker 50s were added to the commuter fleet. During 1990, after the passage of the Deregulation Act for the airline industry in Ireland, Aer Lingus reconsidered its operational policies. It retired the back 111s and replaced them with 5 new 737s. In 1991, 4 Saab 340BS arrived at the commuter division to replace short 360 aircraft. By 1992, Aer Lingus' entire original 737-200 fleet had been replaced, and it was now the first carrier in the world operating all 3 versions of the second generation